gosh. Muffin's experience has a level of time. The little spikes can take extra damage.
But he makes it through.
Wow. I'll save anywhere for him.
Oh! Muffin! Oh, Wilson! Wilson!
What are you doing? No, what are you doing?
Oh, no. Still. Oh! Hellreach! Oh! Hellreach, I'm saving him again! Guys, I hope he remembers that top left keystone, because that's dash. That's huge.
Oh, he forgot it! He doesn't remember. Oh, no.
Hello, and welcome back to the 2018 Ori and the Blind Forest Randomizer Tournament. I'm F, joining me is Grimelius, and we have an exciting match for you today.
We most certainly do. The one we have coming up is Sigma versus Willson. This match is, I think, going to be, I mean, we'll see what the seed provides, but I think it's going to be pretty exciting because of the caliber of the runners that we have playing. So, F, do you want to introduce one of them?
Yeah, I'll talk about Sigma because, well, what's there to say? Sigma, the father of Randomizer, he's the one who created it. He's the one who took his inspiration from the Link to the Past Randomizer and coded it up into a form that we all can enjoy. So as you would expect, he has a very deep understanding of the randomizer and its logic, since the randomizer does follow a logic so that all seeds are completable. And what can I say? That knowledge just translates very well into how he executes and how he plays the game.
One could say that Sigma is cerebral. Would you agree?
I would.
Yeah, I'm saying that, Sigma, so that when you watch us back, you can groan a little bit, so you're welcome for that. On the other hand, we have Willson, and to say that Willson is good at Ori is the understatement of the century. Willson has, at various times, held world record in all skills, which is the most popular and, as a result, the most highly contested speedrun category. That world record has traded back and forth, but Willson is just stupid good at the video game. But Willson is comparatively much newer to Randomizer. So Willson has been putting in a lot of time in practice. I know I've watched a lot of his streams and everything, and he's improving. It's just that there's so much Randomizer-specific knowledge that Willson just doesn't have, or maybe isn't quite as comfortable with as a lot of other runners. And as we've said, going against Sigma, I mean, there is no one on the planet who knows more about the logic than Sigma does.
Yeah, and you can't even say Sigma's execution is weaker than Wilson's, since Sigma has some amazing times in the speedrun categories of this game.
That's right. It almost makes it sound like a false dichotomy. To be clear, both of these runners are really, really freaking good, which is why I'm just so excited to see this match. Sigma for his skill and his knowledge, Willson for his, the same things. It's just going to be really interesting to see how it pans out. And I think the execution of both runners, or what am I trying to say, how they both fare, is going to be largely dependent on how much of the seed is dedicated towards raw execution and how much is dedicated towards routing and just trying to figure out where to go next.
Well, we'll see that coming up as we will be entering the game shortly.
That's right. But as we get started here, just a quick reminder that we are just today getting started with the tournament. We've had a few matches, but we're in our opening round of Swiss, which means that this particular pairing between Sigma and Willson was randomized. It isn't based on their respective merits. They just happen to be paired against each other. But as the Swiss round goes on, with each round, players will be paired with people who have a similar record to their own. But for the time being, it's just sort of almost a match in isolation. And we're starting with a nice clean wall jump. That's such a nice early pickup, in my opinion.
It really is. It gives you a good presence of mind to be able to know that you can interact with walls. There are a lot of walls in Ori.
There are, and especially Ori is such a versatile game with its skills that you'd be shocked, maybe if you're less familiar with Ori, you'd be shocked at how far you can go with a relatively small skill set. And so having that wall interaction early and now having clean water early is very, very nice.
And see, this now just in the second pickup gives the runners an amazing routing decisions now. There are some pickups in clean water that are longer than others. would not expect either of these runners to skip any of the clean water pickups, but it's just one of those things that gives the randomizer so much depth.
Well, it's really interesting, and I just want to point out, look how comparable the two streams are. Like there are times where, apart from the Oris being different colors, the streams might be clones of each other, just to show how clean the execution is. I mean, I'm sure that we'll see more of a discrepancy as we go on. Sigma just having a little bit of trouble with the rock and then the platform. But we're going to see just, I think, a really solid performance out of both. And with that clean water, we now see Willson and Sigma in a moment dipping underwater. This is rare, I think, to get clean water this early.
It definitely is rare, but looks like there won't be progression in the water underneath, but there will be the Spirit Flame upgrade. Now, this is one of the upgrades that's, coded in for the randomizer. It makes your Spirit Flames do more damage and allows you to target more, kind of like the Spirit Flame upgrade in the ability tree.
Gonna be honest, F, I like this seed. I'm guessing that Sigma and Willson both like it. Not only do we have wall jump and clean water, but the Spirit Flame upgrade is pretty freaking nice. I mean, it doesn't by itself get you access to more pickups, but you can just check so many things. They also got more energy. It's just been pretty friendly so far. Also an interesting split. Willson decided to skip this long keystone pickup next to the map altar, presumably because Willson doesn't have a map stone. But
Right.
Sigma got it, and it's Climb.
Well, Climb isn't the most... well, they have wall jump already, so Climb doesn't open up very many things. I don't think it actually opens up anything compared to just wall jump, but it's a skill that's... Oh no.
Oh, that's okay. He had a save. We're all good. Sorry, carry on.
I'll just finish that thought. It has the ability to open up further paths later on if Sigma continues with it and Willson continues without it.
Now, this is interesting. Speaking of that map stone, yep, Willson, as I mentioned at the beginning, Willson is less experienced at the randomizer than Sigma, but that doesn't mean that Willson is bad or that he doesn't have knowledge. I mean, Willson made a smart play, skipping the one isolated pickup until he got a mapstone, which he then received. So this is something that Sigma is going to check too, but Willson is actually going to be almost exactly tied, just a hair ahead of Sigma, but really not too much to speak of yet.
Yeah, that slight death put him back slightly, but he'll be going forward, picking up this health, just... Thank for his presence, just so he can ease his mind a little bit. And this is an interesting choice. He's going up into Spirit Caverns before heading down to wall jump.
F, can you quickly run through the considerations as for one person, or why one person might make this decision that Willson's making?
Right. So in Spirit Caverns, there are 4 keystone pickups that might not be keystones. There's these in the base game. You would use these to open up the door that's coming up to the Spirit Tree. But here, there's just a bunch of pickups that Willson can pick up very quickly with just wall jump. So it seems like that's what he's going to do.
And now this is interesting. So like Spirit Caverns, as you said, is a dense area, and Sigma decided to back out early. So already we're seeing a little bit of a split. Spirit Caverns is very tempting because you might get something super nice, like double jump. That's huge.
Wow.
That's huge. It's also something that Sigma will almost certainly find later on, unless he happens to get enough abilities to sort of dodge this area entirely. But I would expect Sigma to get this later on. It is going to give Willson an advantage in Blackroot Burrows, though, which will likely be Wilson's next destination after he's gone down to wall jump.
Yeah, having the ability to maneuver yourself in air and the extra height opens up quite a few pickups. It might even be what's required to progress, but we'll see as the seed goes on.
Well, it's just really interesting when you look at these randomizer matches. What I'm about to say, I don't mean it to sound disrespectful to other runners, but people like Sigma are just so good at what they do that you would not expect Sigma to make a mistake like not going to Spirit Caverns. Whereas you might see other people try to check, less dense areas or something. So right there, Sigma, well, he got the map stone. He's going to be heading back into Blackroot. It's a little bit faster to Alt-R rather than taking the regular route out. The point I'm long-windedly trying to make is that Sigma will get double jump. He's just going to have it later than Willson. So Wilson's going to get a little bit of a time advantage. But then on the other hand, this is clues, right? And so Sigma's sort of making the smart play, rushing the tree before anything else.
Right. It's always a balance between the density of pickups you're trying to check and the guaranteed knowledge that the clues gives you.
That's right. So to sort of take a high-level view at the race, while we sort of have a bit of a slower section in Blackroot, this seed has been somewhat linear so far. I mean, we had a little bit of a split, as we saw with Willson hitting Spirit Caverns first, but now they're both in Blackroot. Sigma being ahead in Blackroot because he didn't go to Spirit Caverns yet. And I did mention that Wilson's going to have an advantage with double jump in Blackroot, but not that much of one. A lot of the movement is going to be about the same as Sigma had to do.
Yeah, this area added in after the definitive edition was added in the definitive edition of the game. You can get through this area with a surprisingly small amount of skills.
That is right. Now let's pay attention to Sigma for a minute. Nothing too flashy he's doing, sort of a lot of the traditional movements to get up to this lever. Basically the same as all skills. Decided to drop the orb early and save himself, 1 or 2 seconds or whatever it is. And he'll be approaching dash. Also a reminder, or actually, F, I'll just toss it over to you. Can you just refresh everyone's memory, since we are still in the early stages of the tournament, how clues works and why it matters to hit skill trees?
Right, so in clues, as the name might suggest, you can get clues to where the important pickups of the game, the three dungeon keys. And you can get these clues to their locations. A clue to their location by hitting skill trees. The more skill trees you get, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, you have something like WV preceded by question marks. And so right now that clue is still hidden, but as Sigma unlocks more trees, that clue might appear.
Oh boy. Look at this speedy, the speediest of all pickups. This is something that's going to be nice for Sigma, and Sigma, as expected, is going off to the left. His destination pretty much has to be Spirit Caverns, which means that Sigma will not only get double jump, but will arguably be at even more of an advantage, because Sigma is going to be able to turn around and immediately go to Grove, whereas Willson had to do this and then back out. Although, I'm going to sort of correct myself, the Grove teleport is actually in here as well.
Yes.
Which means that it won't be as much of a time loss for Willson. Similar to how Willson got double jump before Sigma, but he's still going to get it. Sigma is about, or let's abandon that whole train of thought and restart it. My point is that Wilson's going to get dash soon as well. So it's nice that Sigma got it early, but it's not going to be much of an advantage in the grand scheme of the entire seed.
Yeah, having dash early, I'm sure, is going to be something these runners are going to look forward to. Makes you go fast, and these two runners definitely have the ability to go fast if they want to.
Mm-hmm. We also see Sigma, after checking that one double jump pickup, backing out. He'll be going down to the teleporter and heading to Grove, which is the logical place to go next, not only because it'll be a path to more pickups, but more importantly, it's a very fast path to our third tree, which is Charge Flame, and more importantly, the clue that it provides. And maybe we get a nice pickup along the way. We'll see.
And he also opted to use the teleporter instead of this area where Sigma is currently was not very far from where he was earlier, but he opted to take the teleporter there and save the keystones, which I think is an interesting decision.
It is. I actually wonder if Sigma had enough keystones. Even if he did, it should be pretty apparent why it's advantageous to not waste 4 keystones if you have already unlocked the teleporter. Not always an option, but in this seed, it is an option. I'm sure we'll see Willson making the same choice once he's done.
In clues especially, where you have a balance between rushing trees and rushing pickups, some of the trees in the game are locked behind keystone doors, specifically dash, double jump, and charge jump.
I just want to kind of... I'm just excited we got the Forlorn CP. That's always exciting. We'll see if that comes into play. I just want to point out some of the less apparent optimizations that Sigma is doing that might not be as obvious if you're familiar with the randomizer. What I'm about to say might sound a little odd. It can be very difficult to remember what skills you have when you're playing randomizer. You're sort of so focused on routing and whatnot, you can just forget that you have something. But even here, we see Sigma, since he has both climb and wall jump, he's going out of his way to climb up walls, which is just very slightly faster than wall jumping, so it's not a big time save, but it's a little one. Even there, Sigma realized that if he went to the Charge Flame tree, then he would have to... if he went to the Charge Flame tree first, he wouldn't have been able to get out, so he intelligently checked everything else. But while I was talking, Willson found something. On
the right-hand side of your screen, Willson found Sunstone. Now, that's one of the dungeon keys I was talking about earlier. It's what allows you access to Mount Toro at the end of the game. The final dungeon of the game. And this is a pickup that Sigma had opted to skip after finding Dash.
So that's really going to be interesting. That's certainly a pretty large advantage to Willson, although Sigma is further along in the seed as a result. So at some point we'll get a Sunstone clue. I mean, we know that'll happen eventually, and then Sigma's going to have to go back for that. So this is going to be, to be honest, I think not as costly for Sigma as it might appear, because that was not in like a bizarre, one-off location that Sigma's unlikely to check later on. That'll be a pretty easy check for him once he gets down there. But, I mean, we'll see.
Sigma doing a little bit of a death glide there. Made a little easier with double jump. He's going to be progressing onwards and progressing onwards into Grotto and down to the double jump tree. Or maybe not. We'll see where he goes from here.
I have to say, if I'm really, really enjoying how closely these runners are mirroring each other, and it's because they're making smart plays. It is interesting. Willson decided to open up the door and then back out to the Spirit Well. I thought he was going to use his 4 energy to open the gate, but he burned one of them, I think, until he only has a 4, and almost did die to the slime. Not too costly of a death, though, so that's okay. But yeah, Willson, he has 4 energy cell capacity, but he only has 3 currently, so unable to check that pickup right now.
I think he definitely wanted to, since he ended up going down into the water, but it seems like he made a... It's very easy to place down saves for your...
Unsurprisingly, depending on what the randomizer seed throws at you, certain resources can be sort of limiting factors. Sometimes it's Keystone, sometimes it's whatever. Sigma just found Charge Flame, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, Charge Flame allows the runners to break plants now, and Sigma, I'm sure Sigma will appreciate that as he heads down into...
Oh, hello there, Water Vein. We now have 1 key apiece. That, however, is a pickup that's similar to the Sunstone, even maybe more so. Willson will pretty much definitely check that once he heads down. He'll almost certainly do a save anywhere in order to glitch the trapdoor opening, and as a result, he will get the Water Vein. So it's one of these things where Sigma will certainly be relieved to find it, but he's a smart enough player. Sigma is a smart enough player to realize that it won't be an enormous advantage.
And on the left-hand side of your screen, Sigma just found Bash, another highly useful skill in just being able to complete the game. There is a minimum skill set you need to complete the game, and since we know, as viewers, we know the location of both the Sunstone and the Water Vein, well, we have a seed.
We do. By the way, Willson just doing that save anywhere. He'll be going over to the right to check the vanilla Water Vein pickup and the orb next to it. Then he'll drop down and check that ability cell right in the middle, and he will get his Water Vein very shortly. Meanwhile, Sigma made it to the double jump tree. That's 4 out of 10 trees down. If you're unfamiliar with math, that means that we have 6 to go, although of course we need enough skills and resources and teleporters and whatnot in order to reach all of them.
So now these players, each having one key apiece, they have some interesting decisions to make. So if you were in Sigma's position, Grim, what kind of plays would you find yourself making with a not the most limited skill set you've ever played with, but still kind of limited in some ways?
To be quite honest, if I'm Sigma, I treat myself as almost in go mode. And that's something that I think is really fascinating and something we should maybe take a minute to discuss. For those unfamiliar, go mode in a randomizer refers to the state in which you have acquired enough skills and abilities and world events and whatnot where you can finish the seed completely. I don't think that either runner is in that state yet, but you'd be surprised in Ori how quickly you can start thinking about the end game. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if in the second pickup in the game, when you found clean water, one of Sigma's first thoughts was, okay, now I can get through with less than 5 health. You know, you can do quite a bit. So I'm not saying that Sigma's in go mode yet, but I think from his perspective, he's thinking, I'm pretty close. He has Bash, he has the Water Vein, which means right there he can get to both the Bash tree and the Stomp tree, which will also get him another clue, which might be the Sunstone. Do you see how these things kind of start to chain together? I think Sigma could make it very, very far, and so he might start skipping quite a few pickups.
And on the right-hand side of your screen, it seems like Willson is looking for is taking kind of the opposite approach. The area Wilson's in right now doesn't directly progress his way towards a tree, but it does have a high density of pickups, and he is checking these pickups.
Yeah. I want to sort of just reflect on a point I just made. We already saw Sigma check the Swamp Entry plant. A quick pickup. It's possible that that's a mistake, but that's not likely for someone of Sigma's caliber. I think that he's just skipping pickups with the logic that there are still a few things he would want, most notably a way to navigate Sorrow, like a left side teleporter or ideally Feather or something. But Sigma's probably thinking, it's entirely possible that any of these random one-offs are Feather, but it's statistically unlikely on an individual basis. So he's probably thinking, I can rush a lot of different trees and then go search dense areas.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I bet that's how Sigma's going to play, knowing how experienced he is. I mean, and the other thing about, by the way, Willson just found Bash, so that's very nice for him. To also reiterate on the points, oh, never mind. Sigma was smart. He knew he was going to be exiting out this way, so he checked the plant on the way up.
It's a very smart decision.
Now he's going to check this one and the next one. You see what I mean with Sigma's routing? I mean, he's just checking these pickups so efficiently. And that's something that, again, it's not that Willson isn't capable of doing it. Of course he is, and he's been showing that. But Sigma's just really, really showcasing his knowledge.
The advantage Willson does have is having found Sunstone early. He knows what he needs to comfortably finish the game. So we'll see what kind of choices he makes to facilitate that. And we'll see where he takes this from here. It looks like he's starting to head towards trees in this case.
Speaking of heading towards trees, Sigma decided to take a bit of a detour, kind of a long route around the Ginso tree in order to clear a number of pickups on his way. Had a nice rocket jump in the process using Charge Dash, and now he's going to head into Ginso. And I guess to sort of drive this point home about Ori Go mode, there's, what am I trying to say? In the standard logic, right, which is the difficulty that we're playing on, there are combinations of skills that the randomizer expects you to have. For example, before you can reach the light grenade tree, the logic expects that you have dash, but there are a number of workarounds to both break the floor and to get past what we call the Yoko laser. Sigma is going to be someone who is not only knows all of the methods, but is going to be comfortable with all of them. So even though Sigma doesn't have stomp or dash, in his mind, that's not even a barricade. He's just thinking, all right, that's one more tree checked off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with the experience he has and just the sheer number of seeds he's played gives him maybe not just more experience with limited skill set.
That's right. This is interesting. We see Willson hitting the Swamp Teleporter, and he also got rocket jumps. I'm guessing he'll use his right about... No, he's not. Okay, he could have used a rocket jump there to go check the ability cell off to the left, but I think we're going to see Willson heading into the Ginso tree as well.
So our runners are converging on each other, and we can see what kind of pickups. There are quite a few pickups in the Ginso tree.
To be honest, I despite what I said just a little bit ago about Sigma treating himself in like almost go mode, given all the skills he has, I bet Sigma will continue in Ginso once he hits the Bash tree, because he can check so many pickups. It's such a dense area, and just from having, you know, watched Sigma play a lot of seeds, you'd be shocked, or maybe you wouldn't be shocked, how often you get progression in Upper Ginso, even though you technically don't have to go there. So I think Sigma will probably not want to take the chance. Yeah,
you guys should put your attention on the right-hand side of your screen as Willson does a beautiful series of telehops to get up the teleporter room, the gamer room in Ginso.
Teleporter giving him a bit of grief, but the first teleporter, oh no! You know, this is an opportunity, F, to see more telehops.
Yeah. Willson, like we said, is so good at this game. You can just see that experience and execution coming through here.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, as we see Sigma reaching the Bash tree. In a moment, we'll see whether he continues, and Willson just, you know, on Sigma's heels. Who is in the lead, if anyone?
I would not even... I wouldn't consider either of the two runners in the lead. Yes, Sigma does have more trees. As we know, trees give clues, which can give you a guaranteed knowledge of where a key is, a dungeon key is. But Willson has the two keys he needs to complete the game. He doesn't have quite the skills that he might feel comfortable with finishing the game, but...
So I want to sort of half interrupt you and draw attention to Sigma on the left. Look where Sigma's going. He's heading to this area, which means that he's going to get his Sunstone momentarily, because there's no way Sigma doesn't check these things. So you're absolutely correct. in saying that Willson had the advantage with Sunstone, but he's not going to have that advantage for more than a few more seconds. It's at the health cell. Sigma's going to get it in just a moment. He'll be dashing through. Also, Sigma's going to be very careful to keep that particular Frankie alive, because Sigma will almost certainly be doing a trick that we call the reverse Frankie walk in order to break into Light Grenade. We'll see if he, in a moment, whether he follows through with that.
So, to get into the like, oh, well, it looks like he's teleporting over. Yes, so.
To be honest, I missed where. Okay, to Grove.
Yeah, to Grove, yes.
You know what? To be honest, I like this play. If I had to guess, and this is something we can check with Sigma about if he, decides to talk with us after the race, but if I had to check, Sigma's line of thinking is, I could do the reverse Frankie walk, but I have a lot of stuff left to check, and I might, get lucky and find a better path, and in the meantime, I don't have to waste my time with the difficult trick. Well, so here's another difficult trick.
Sigma double bashing that Frankie up onto the peg so that it can stomp the peg for him.
That's a cool trick. The uptick of that trick is that it allows us to go left side without stomp. The randomizer logic, the standard difficulty, absolutely expects stomp. So we know the stomp is somewhere on the right side of the map, probably. We just don't know exactly where, and Sigma's not going to waste his time searching when he can just do that trick.
And Willson, having collected his bash tree, is going up, and it looks like he's heading to Swamp now. So Willson is also cleaning up the trees that he's able to clean up.
Now, this is really fascinating as well. Sigma on the left ordinarily is not able to go into the place he is right now. He'll be breaking this in just a second. Sigma just used two very valuable pieces of knowledge to do what he did. Piece of information number one, the Kuro kill plane in Valley is not active if you don't have Stomp. The logic doesn't expect you to use it, but Sigma's going to go ahead and basically sequence break his way through. Second piece of knowledge is that once you have the Sunstone, the Wilhelm Frog spawns, and you can use its projectile to break the rocks rather than doing fast Stompless. So that might not have looked like much, but it's something that a lot of players would have forgotten. I just find that fascinating. I love watching these guys play for that reason.
Yeah, Sigma knows exactly what his capabilities are.
and here we go. It's sort of what I described. We see Sigma just continuing to run. Sigma knows that he has both keys that he needs, so his only remaining objective is to hit all the remaining trees and make it through the final escape. Sigma already has enough skills to pretty easily make it through the escape, so to be honest, the only real consideration anymore is getting to the charge jump tree. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, since he doesn't have glide, it's going to be... He has a number of ways to try and make it through that area, but it's going to be tough.
It certainly will, but even here... And I don't mean to ignore Willson. I feel like I've been focusing on Sigma for a while, but Sigma is effectively skipping pickups. He has to acquire a number of these keystones as he goes through Misty, just to progress the area and make it to the climb tree, but otherwise he's skipping everything. And the reason for that is that Sigma not only has enough skills that he can probably do everything he needs to do anyway, even Sorrow, but Sigma knows that of the few abilities that he would need, namely Stomp and Feather, neither of them are capable of being here, based on the standard randomizer logic, so what's the point of searching?
That's correct. Let's see, Willson has made his way over to the Hologrove. Oh no. Willson has made his way over to the Hologrove area. I'm interested to see where Willson goes with this. I'm not sure how comfortable he was with the trick Sigma displayed, with bashing the Frankie up to the peg in order to stomp the peg for him.
I'm not either. It's certainly something that, if Willson isn't familiar with that trick, that could be quite costly. Stomp could be anywhere on the right side of the map. It doesn't technically only have to be right side, but it probably is. And that's something that Willson knows, but of course, it'll still be potentially a long search. So we'll see what he does when the time comes.
Right now, it seems like he's going to the charge flame tree, just cleaning it up.
I was going to say earlier on when I asked you who was in the lead, it was a little bit unclear, given that Willson had the Sunstone and Sigma didn't. But at that time, Sigma also had 2 additional trees. Now Sigma is up still 2 additional trees, but they're left side trees. Well, Feather's not a tree, but you get the idea. And here we go, Sigma doing his reverse Frankie walk. Can you tell us what this trick is?
So this Frankie stomps have the ability to break boulders, break walls. They're kind of like, we saw it in the trick Sigma did in the Valley entry, where the Frankie stomped the peg. And so what he's going to do is he's going to bait this Frankie under the crushers. And That's a feat where he walks his Frankie under the crushers, getting the Frankie to jump in the precise spot so that it doesn't die to break this platform right here, which gives him access to Light Grenade.
God, I love the confidence by Sigma not even making a safety save after. Trick is, it's not that hard once you know how to do it, but you do have to know how to do it, and there are a lot of ways to fail. First and foremost, as you said, the frog is not immune to damage, but with that, Sigma's through, and he'll be dashing on through. Thankfully, Sigma, since he has dash, doesn't have to do a silly backup to get through the laser. All he had to do is use the backup to get through the floor.
Yeah. So he's made it to his Light Grenade tree, which leaves him with one final tree left, the Charge Jump tree, and I'm excited to see how he's going to tackle this problem.
That's right. Meanwhile, the check-in with Willson, I think he just got some kind of bash bug. Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to his bash there, but it seems like he's also going to be going for this Frankie Stomp.
Sure. Yes. Well, anyway, I like this play by Willson. This trick, as we said, is not that easy. You have to get the frog on top and not throw yourself into damage in the process. I do think that this is a smart play by Willson. His alternative being to continue searching for Stomp for a long time, and Willson probably doesn't want to do that anyway, especially knowing who his opponent is.
Yes. Willson wants to be making his way towards the trees because in the randomizer we have a flag called Forced Trees where you're required to visit all the trees in order to complete the game.
That's right. Well, let's pay attention to the left side. Sigma is doing Sorrow Bash, albeit in a rather unconventional way. You a pretty long chain of double bashes, making it through pretty nicely, and Sigma's going to be skipping everything. There can be a lot of gatekeepers in Ori to be polite about it. There can be a lot of things that can cause you grief in your seed, but reaching the Charge Jump tree is certainly one of them. Interesting that Sigma is just immediately choosing to sort of go around the long way, if you will, rather than going up the central column. I think the reason for this is that Sigma is going to be doing something that we call boulder strats or tumbleweed strats, where you can take one of the tumbleweeds with you on a fun, quote-unquote fun, double bash journey through the Dorito Cave, the Dorito Cave being a particularly challenging area with a lot of spikes that it's very difficult to traverse without Feather.
Since Sigma doesn't have Feather, he's going to have to take this boulder on a journey. You can see these double bashes coming through, one after the other.
This is not easy what Sigma's doing right now. He's probably going to make it look kind of easy, but it's really, really not. Alright, there he goes, double bashing it up, and away we go. So for those unfamiliar with Ori, you'll see in a minute why Sigma's opting to go for such a sort of a silly roundabout trick. Is that all of these spikes... Oh no, Miss 20's gonna have to... Oh, never mind, I forgot that the wind exists. These spikes deal a lot of damage. Oh god. Okay, there it is. Where is this... Where is this tumbleweed going, dude?
I think it's fair to note that Sigma does have practice double bashing this. Is that grenade?
That's grenade.
He does have a fair amount of practice double bashing this boulder since he does do a variation of, or he does take this boulder on a journey in any % 1 life plus.
A totally legitimate category, by the way. Willson, by the way, to check in, has been heading through. It is interesting to note, Willson sent us some information to help Terry side of things before the match, and one thing he said is that something that he needs to, or that he would like to improve about his randomizer play, is to stop checking pickups when he has the ability to do so. He said that's something he's not good at. And so it's interesting to me to see that Willson is continuing to check pickups, where Sigma at the same point in his run was skipping everything.
Right. I think that's a matter of comfort for these players. Willson, I think, is just might be comfortable with slightly more skills than the game has provided so far.
That's Sigma. Right. Well, and to emphasize, we've sort of danced around this point a number of times, but to emphasize, what Sigma just did there with the boulder was pretty time consuming, right? And it probably looked horrible because it kind of is, to be honest. It's not easy to do at all. But Sigma's alternative was to search pretty much the entire map, searching for either the Sorrow Teleporter or Feather. And those could be almost anywhere. And so rather than doing all of that, Sigma decided to just take the hit of a few minutes and make it through. And his reward, of course, is, as you can see by his tracker in the bottom left, is that he's now activated every tree and he's on his way to the fiery Mount Horror. So he's on his way to the end. Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of trouble with this elemental, but he'll make it through.
Okay, let's look at this. So look what Wilson's doing. Okay, that's a death. That's okay. Willson intelligently made the save to try that again. I like that Wilson's going for this. I mean, it's very smart in his circumstances, given that he doesn't have Stomp to break the floor. But this is something that, to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure if Wilson was comfortable with, and I'm very happy to see that he is.
Yeah, it's just Randomizer has all these tricks that you wouldn't see in the normal game, and in some of our more esoteric categories. But he's doing very well with this Frankie. Maybe not doing it quite as fast. Oh no!
That's okay. Wilson's going to take a death and keep trying. Meanwhile, Sig, I believe, Tridor happily dashing all over the place, using some bash grenades. So Sigma's into his final escape. We'll sort of keep an eye on the left side of the screen as Sigma gets through this. I don't think Sigma should have too many issues. He has double jump and bash and all kinds of fun stuff to get through, so he won't have to do any of the more difficult versions of the final escape. Not today.
Willson just going to bash the frog past those dangerous spikes. That's a very good optimization that he made there.
By the way, for those unfamiliar, the Frankie has two jump heights. He can jump high or he can jump low based on your distance. And if he jumps high at that spot, he catapults himself straight into damage. Good save, Willson.
So Willson just having the presence of mind to know that those spikes do hurt the Frankie, and bashing it away from those dangerous spikes.
Well, Willson is down, and he'll be using dash to get through. Pretty much the same as Sigma. Sigma, meanwhile, almost to the end, having to play just a hair safe. Reminder, the Sigma doesn't have Feather. He also doesn't have Charge Jump, but that's okay. He can actually use a number of different strats. Looks like he's just going to use Fish strats. He's not even going to bother despawning Kuro.
Yeah, he's going to bash this fish up, then rocket jump just like that to the end of the game.
GG to Sigma. This is going to be a 34.5-ish, maybe a little bit more time, but that'll be a sub 35 time, which is very impressive.
It is a very impressive time.
Of course, Sigma and Willson, by the nature of Randomizer, are not allowed to watch chat or the stream or anything, so they don't know how the other person's doing, although Sigma has to feel pretty good about that. And if Willson is watching the SRL chat, he'll be able to see pretty shortly that Sigma has won. But for Wilson's part, he's not doing badly. I mean, look at what he's been able to accomplish. The only trick he still needs is, as we said, sort of the gatekeeper of this seed, which is Charge Jump.
Yeah, we'll see how Willson decides to tackle that. I'm very interested because Willson he told us as much that he doesn't have, he admits he doesn't have as much experience with the Randomizer, but he seems to be playing this like he does have a lot of experience with the Randomizer.
That's right. I want to sort of, just because I would kind of feel bad if I didn't say what I'm about to say, I feel like we've almost given the impression that Willson is bad at times just because Sigma is so efficient in his routing and whatnot. That's not true. Wilson's really, really good. Like, I would be scared facing him as an opponent, to be honest.
Definitely.
Sigma finished, by the way, his timer is 34. So as we said, right about the 34.5 minute mark. Well done. Willson just heading up. Willson still doesn't have Feather or anything. So Willson is going to have to do pretty much a double bashed Sorrow Bash, and then he's going to have to do something to get through the spikes. We'll see what it is.
You can see Wilson's experience with just the game coming through. He's doing this Sorrow Bash chain like he didn't have any trouble with it.
Did you mention that Wilson's pretty okay at the game? Has only had world record at various times. He's okay.
Yeah.
Now this is interesting. Willson is deciding to go for the more traditional, in the speedrunner sense of the word, the more traditional speedrunner trick to break up to the top. But this isn't the hard part. The hard part is getting through this. And Willson might, he might even have gone up there on pilot before realizing that he wouldn't be able to get through.
And so it looks like he's going to come down. Maybe he'll charge dash through this boulder zone? Oh, no.
I mean, the problem is, like, there are multiple stages of garbage in this run. Willson is going for it. I love it, but he doesn't have enough health.
No, not quite.
That was an extra double jump in the spikes. That was kind of a nice pickup. So again, Willson faced with a sort of comparable choice. Nice C-dash through the laser there. Willson doing a bit of a comparable thing, Sigma, where it's like, do you keep searching for more pickups or do you go for another strat? And if you're going to go for another strat, there's a sort of various layers of how rough that particular strat could be.
Right. And it looks like Willson is going to abandon that attempt, and he's just going to check a couple pickups, maybe in the hopes of finding a skill that would make this easier. But like you said before, Grip, some of the things he can't find some of the things to make this easier for him.
Right. I mean, the thing that Willson wants is Feather. That's what he wants. Willson can't find Feather in Sorrow. The logic can't put it here. The reasoning is that the logic expects you to have Feather before you come to Sorrow.
Right. Oh no, he kills his frog.
There's so many little workarounds that you might not think of if you've only played this game casually. Like, even going that path is not the intended path. The game expects you to go up and around and get a bunch of keystones. But Willson's not going to do that. He's going to do the same thing that Sigma did earlier, which is, well, if he goes down that path again, he's going to use the same... My god, what am I trying to say, dude? He's going to use the... Yes, he's going to use the same frog to break the ceiling, which means that if he kills the frog, he has to reload because he doesn't have charge jump. That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
Well, here we go. Looks like Willson is actually deciding to continue checking some things. Very understandable why he's continuing to search, because Wilson's options are to... Actually, no, Willson just got Ultra Defense.
That might be what he was searching for. So Ultra Defense, the final skill in the, what I would call the blue line of abilities, reduces the damage that Ori takes from certain environmental hazards and enemies. And that might give him the health he needs, but maybe not the skills.
Well, this is just so fascinating. So Willson with health regen now has enough health to survive 3 hits. So Willson, I guess there are several parts to this puzzle, if you will. Piece number 1 is to gain enough height to make it over the first sort of round of spikes. Willson can do that with a rocket jump, but he doesn't have any energy. He had to spend some of it to make a save, so Willson was just sort of out. And even if Willson did a rocket jump, he would then be out of energy to do charge dashes, which Willson is going to need in the air to make it through. And even doing that, Willson is probably going to have to resort to something like a zombie Ori, which is where you open up an extended save anywhere and continually make saves to get through. But how many ability points does Willson have? Is he out?
I would, after getting Ultra Defense, I wouldn't think that he has very many.
This is a challenging situation. It's not like Willson is playing this badly. It's just Willson knows that all he has to do to finish the entire seed is just to get to the charge flame tree, or charge jump tree, excuse me. So Wilson's trying to come up with whatever weird strats he can come up with to do so, and it's just not easy. There's a lot that's possible in Ori, but man, it can be challenging.
Right.
I guess, what do you think you would do in Wilson's shoes right now?
That's hard to say. I think having played the randomizer, I would go for the tumbleweed strats, but that's difficult to say in the heat of the moment. I think if I had gotten up to this point, I would probably be trying to do what Willson is doing. Oh, it looks like he went and got Grenade, which is a very smart decision.
I didn't even think of that. Nice job, Willson. The extra double jump, even here, can he do it? This is going to be possible. That's the important thing. This is still going to be painful, but this is going to be possible. Now, rather than having to do rocket jumps and charge dashes and stuff, Willson can use grenades, and he can use bash glides or, bash dash glides, whatever you want to call them, to make it through these spikes. It's still going to be very precise, though, because Willson has to damage boost, which knocks him away from spikes, then jump back towards the spikes in order to try to finagle his way around it without taking so much damage. And he's going to pop back down again. He can survive one more hit, but he didn't get a refresh on his double jumps.
I wonder if Willson will try that strategy again, where he went for grenade and then backed out. Maybe if he tried to get extra double jump and then backed out, that extra double jump might be what he needs to get through these spikes.
That's right. Like I said, what Willson is going for here is possible. And if you're watching this and you think it looks painful, you're right. It is very painful. But again, the alternative is to search pretty much the entire world for Feather, and Wilson's just not going to waste his time. It could be anywhere, and he might get lucky and find it immediately. Might waste another half hour, and Wilson's just not going to do that.
Wilson's so close.
This is one of the more difficult parts about random. It can be sometimes very stressful, I guess, for lack of a better term, when you're playing these seeds to try to make these kinds of decisions so close there. The other part, as I said, playing Randomizer, you earn quite a bit of very, very specialized knowledge about this video game. One piece of such knowledge is that those spikes around that Dorito cave, you can traverse kind of the second half of them with well-timed charge dashes with just a little bit of extra height. It's kind of like there's almost a horizontal gap you can get through, you know what I mean?
Right, but
like it's so hard.
But you have to see, look, Wilson doesn't quite have the energy that he wants. He was circling his energy before. He's very close to a level up, so that might be what he's trying to get.
Oh, that's smart. That's real smart. What and this is just so tricky too. Like Wilson, you know, he drops down to get energy,
but then he has
energy to get back up with a rocket jump. And take energy, chat. I need you to spam all of your energy giving emotes. Wilson needs all of it that he can find right now. This is going to be hard for anyone, not just Wilson. Wilson, I'm not laughing at your pain. I'm laughing with your pain.
I've been in. I think we've all been in this situation before, and it's rough.
One other thing I'm thinking of: does Wilson have energy regen? Energy regen, for those, I don't know if we explicitly said this, there are a handful of pickups that were added to the randomizer that don't exist in the base version of the game. One of those is, well, health regen and an energy regen and health regen, respectively, restoring energy and health very slowly. So it's possible, if Wilson has it, that he was just waiting for, you know, his energy to refill to 1 rather than, you know, 0.9 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think he wants the energy for just this last C dash. If he can get over this nook, and he didn't have the jump.
See, it's so close. He can't. It's not sufficient to just get a bend. He has to get around the bend with at least 1 jump remaining.
It looks like he's going to make a pit stop for this extra double jump. It might be what he needs.
That was it. That was it. All Wilson had to do there is pop back onto the spikes and abuse his invincibility frames to refresh his double jumps. That was very close, and I think that Wilson is making the correct sort of adaptive play, if you will, to attempt to pop down there. Yeah, because you can't make it across there without the ability to gain just a little bit more height. At least it's ultra precise to give it a shot.
What I also want to highlight is just how good Wilson is at this game. You can see him. You can see how he's learning. He's learning to tackle this, and he's through!
First try, Wilson. They said it couldn't be done, but boy, you proved us all wrong. Turns out it's free.
Yeah.
Nice job. Wilson's still not out of the woods. He's not going to waste any time. Immediately went to the save, just in case he gets sort of, you know, wrecked by these guys. He also has to bring this frog projectile, because without Stomp, that's the only way to break the floor. Well, that he has available to him anyway.
And there we go. Wilson got his 10th tree, and he'll be making his way to Mount Horror.
Oh my god.
That was amazing.
That's painful. Knowing Wilson, he's going to be, well, maybe he's going to be laughing about it. Maybe he's going to be crying about it. I think either reaction is pretty appropriate, to be honest. He's done, though. Wilson's heading towards Mount Horror, heading to the CP. He'll be going left, and then sort of up, and then right, and then up, and then left some more, until he reaches the final dungeon.
And knowing Wilson, he has the abilities to make this quite fast. You can just see him using those charge dashes.
So by the way, we will be interviewing Sigma shortly. We sort of wanted to not sort of override Wilson's struggle. But we will be talking to Sigma shortly, and hopefully Wilson will want to join us as well. As always, it's up to the runner whether they want to talk. I have a feeling Wilson probably will want to talk, knowing his personality, but I won't speak for him. We'll just wait and see what he wants to do at the end.
So, making his way to Mount Haru, and he'll be coming up on a trick we like to call door warp, where you press up on the frame of the game, on a specific frame. The game will teleport you to the final escape. We saw Sigma do it his in first try. I don't expect Willson to take a try.
Willson is a professional. He doesn't even know what second try means.
Exactly.
Watch this. He's going to get it. It's free. Yes, it is. By the way, when we say something's free, if you ever hear a speedrunner say a trick is free, it probably means it's really impossible. So that trick is not nearly as impossible as the Dorito Cave garbage that Willson had to go through on this seed, but good job getting first try on the door warp.
Yeah, very well done. So, be making his way through the final escape. We'll see if Willson opts to go for fish strats or not. I'm sure he will.
I'll say this, F. Playing a lot of randomizer seeds makes you appreciate the little things like freaking having feather, for example.
Right. But Willson timing his double jumps to float in the air. Not even taking damage there.
The good news is that, this escape is going to be quite easy for Willson. He's done it literally thousands of times. He has bash, he has clean water, he has plenty of health, he has ultra defense. Willson's also going to use the rocket jump to go zooming up into the air, bash off the Sigma rock, and away he goes.
There you go.
So GG to Willson. It's interesting that both runners were sort of potentially roadblocked by the same thing, right? Getting to the charge jump tree, and Sigma just decided to cut out the middleman, take the time hit, and go get the bramble, the tumbleweed, and Willson didn't.
Yeah. And like we said, sometimes that comes down to knowledge of your limits and what you're comfortable with.
That's right. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and ping Sigma, make sure he's ready to go, and I'm going to bring in Sigma right now, as will. I think we have plenty of time, but just in case. And then we'll sort of check with Willson as well. So F, I'll let you, I don't know, talk about something for a moment while I check with Sigma.
Yeah. And so I just want to reiterate, like Grim said, that Willson did. You wouldn't think it through just looking at the times, these two runners, but Willson did a great job adapting, and adapting is part of this randomizer. He adapted, he learned as he was playing, and that's just one of the marks of a good player.
Well, speaking of good players, we have the one and only Sigma with us. Hi, Sigma.
Hey, Grim. How's it going?
Oh, it's going fine. Better than probably for Willson, given that he just had to do that.
Yeah, I tuned in when I was finished and I saw what was happening. I don't envy that position.
Well, I'm actually going to... I have some questions for you, but I see Willson and on deck, so I'm actually going to go ahead and pull him right now. Hey, Willson, what's up, dude?
Yep.
Hey!
Hey.
Welcome. Congrats on finishing. I know that was...
that was rough.
So I want to start specifically talking about that section, because it turns out neither of you found feather. And so neither of you had, an easy path to get to the charge jump tree. So Sigma, I'll start with you. When you got to Sorrow, you didn't even bother with the initial rocket jump. You immediately went for that tumbleweed. Was there any hesitation in your mind on the strats you were going to use to get through that section?
No. I pretty much, as soon as I found Bash and Grotto, I saw my path to the end of the game, and I was kind of hoping that I wouldn't have to take it, but, that's all we got, so I just carried on with the plan.
Do you have a lot of practice specifically with that double bash bramble trick?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a lot better than the alternatives, aside from maybe zombieing through the spikes, but we were really starved on ability cells, I found, so I just didn't have enough points to do it, so I was like, well, I have to take the tumbleweed, no other choice.
Yeah, well, and Willson sort of at the same section, you got to the Dorito Cave, came to the same realization that it was going to be very difficult to work your way through. What was going through your head? What options were you considering as far as making it through?
Yeah, so I would have gone for tumbleweed as well if I had stopped and could actually get to it. But when I first got there, I didn't have ultra defense, and that was my first priority. And then I tried to go for it once, and I just noticed that it was like both grenade and an extra double jump was in there. So that was really taunting that I couldn't get to them and go back to save. Or, well, I could get the grenade, and I did later, but it took me so long to get anywhere with that. But at the same time, I was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to go searching for climb, or stomp or glide or something. I'm going to do it. And then I saw that Sigma finished, and I was like, okay, well, let's just keep going for it until it works.
Right. Well, the question I want to ask then is, having experienced this, do you think you're going to be putting in the practice for this specific trick now that you've experienced it once?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do that. Even though every randomizer can be unique in the sense that you get there with different skills. Like this time I didn't have stomp, otherwise I would have gone for tumbleweed. Sometimes you have grenade, sometimes you have charge jump. This time I had to use a rocket jump sometimes to get the height, to get the grenade before I could go back to save. So, I mean, it can be done in a lot of ways, and I definitely need to practice some of them.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Sigma, I have another question for you. Given the number of skills that were acquired relatively quickly, and I think you sort of answered this, at what point in the sea do you think you were, in go mode, effectively skipping a lot of pickups, even though you didn't have the Sunstone at that point?
I actually decided to tree rush and not do things like Left Grotto or the mini boss before I found Bash, and then I found Bash, 30 seconds after I made that decision, and then I said, okay, well, this is just go mode, to get clues. Although, I was really worried when I got the Blackroot clue, and that's why I went straight there, because I was like, oh no, is it gonna be grenade locked?
Well, thankfully it wasn't. So I guess Willson, to toss another question your way. I had a question in mind. What was I going to ask? Oh, I was going to ask. You're newer to Randomizer than Sigma, although I know you've been doing a lot of practice and everything. And I saw you go for some, rather difficult tricks like the reverse Frankie walk and everything. Are those tricks that you've practiced explicitly, or are there still areas you feel might be gaps in your Randomizer repertoire that you'd like to spend time with?
The Frankie walks I've actually practiced by just doing more seeds where I try to rush trees earlier. So when I don't have stomp or any other way to break floors, I started doing the Frankie walk instead, because I actually had a conversation with Sigma a couple of weeks ago where I was like, but didn't it take you a while to get stomp or something? And he just told me he Frankie walked it, and that's why he finished so early. And so I started to put that into practice as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's smart given your alternative of just finding stomp anywhere in the map,
Yeah, but I definitely need some more practice with Blackroot Frankie walk. I'm not really 100% sure of how it works with the crushers and the spikes, so I'm still learning.
I have one final question for the both of you. I guess we'll take Sigma's answer and then Wilson's answer. How does this match make you feel going into the rest? Does it give you more confidence? Just how did the experience of playing this match set you up for your future matches?
Well, I felt pretty good about this one. Everything went pretty well on my end. Before this, I had done a couple practice seeds, and I think 2 in a row I got Water Vein and Sorrow where I didn't have Glide, and I had to struggle through that, and those went really, really badly, so I'm glad that I got a Glideless Sorrow that wasn't quite so painful this time.
What about you, Wilson?
I feel okay. I didn't really expect to win this one unless a miracle happened or something. So it was expected, and I know I'm not the best at Randomizer, so even if I would have won this one, and maybe even the next one, I know I'm going to face some really tough opponents that I just can't beat, or, well, it's very, very unlikely. So I'm expecting to take some losses, and this was one of them.
Well, I think that I still think that you guys played well. I mean, it was really just that final charge jump thing that was particularly rough, in my opinion. But I guess you can decide for yourself when you if you watch it back.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking with us, guys, though. I kind of want to finish up because we have our final randomizer match of the day starting on Speed Gaming 2. Probably right about now, but yeah, thanks for talking with us.
No problem. Thanks for casting.
Yeah, thanks for the commentary, guys. GG, Willson.
GG, Sigma.
Yeah, so F, I guess I'll kind of toss to you if you want to close us up here.
All right. Well, that was one of the first matches in our first round of our Swiss. And we have another match on Speed Gaming 2. And so for Willson versus Dr. Twed, it should be a very good match in my opinion. I raced against Twed and I was very impressed with his performance. So head over there, go watch that.
That's right. Go watch Speed Gaming 2. Watch more Ori. And even after today, we'll have a number of matches throughout the rest of the week, but I'll leave that to our talented commentators over on that other channel. But otherwise, F, it's been a pleasure commentating with you, and we will see you all later.